Kia ora. So in this video, we're going to dive into the topic of uncertainty. And I'm going to share with you a very recent journey and experience that I've just moved through where I had to handle uncertainty. I was just reading about one of my gene keys, which is gene key 22. And it's okay if you're not familiar with the gene keys, that's all right. However, what the gene keys are is they help us step through different sequences to understand our purpose, our passion, and how we prosper. And each gene key has a theme, and the gene key I was looking at it points to the theme of what I'm here to do on this earth. And every gene key has a shadow that we must turn and face to learn from and to harvest the gifts from. And it contains a gift and the highest purpose of that gift. And so this gene key I was looking at was gene key 22, which is the gift of graciousness with the highest purpose of grace, and the shadow to learn from is dishonor. And when I was reading this gene key, it was speaking about how at the shadow level, we'll start with the gift. At the gift level, it's about considering people's feelings in everything that I do. That is the gift. That is what I'm here to do, it's about this sounds not all the way deep, but this is the word that's coming out. It's about waking up humanity to live our truest lives, but in a way that is considering of where people are at. And I look at the shadow and I feel like the shadow of dishonor is to not consider where people are at, not consider people's feelings. And this is a tricky one, because when I speak truth, sometimes it comes across as gangster, but the feeling within me is very light, and it's correct for me to say those things. Like, there's an invitation, it's truth, it may be a hard truth, but it is like the person asked, and therefore it feels correct. It doesn't feel that I'm subliminally trying to attack them or judge them without them having asked for that. Whereas I can feel the difference sometimes when I'm speaking and someone's not ready for a message, or they have not asked for what I'm about to say, and yet I say it anyway, and it's this energy of like, I wish you would get this, and it is somewhat inconsiderate of their feelings and where they are at. I do notice this in my communication, that I have this ability to just, kind of go, or, speak a truth that is a hard truth, yet in a way that considers someone's feelings and where they're at. And so the reason why I shared all of that is because me sharing my experiences, I feel, is a way that really brings you and I into the same conversation, where I'm not just judging or speaking on a topic and coming with this energy of like, this is what y'all should be doing. Sharing my experience is actually saying, this is what I've journeyed through. I feel you. And in some way, it's taking into consideration and understanding where you might be at. It's letting you know that I'm human too, so that when I speak these bolder, somewhat harder to, swallow truths, it's coming from the place that I live this, I understand like how this may feel, and also it's so important for our evolution as human beings. So with that being said, you know, this is not, if you feel at any point that this message is not the one for you, and you feel like, yeah, it's too much, or whatever it may be, please, you know, please take, like, you do you, yeah, you do you, and maybe stop watching this video, come back later, or yeah, just let it go if that's what needs to be done. I will say that this share that I'm about to share is about, there will be references to domestic violence. So, if that's not something you want to be journeying through, or things coming up in that respect, please, jump out here. So I'm going to share my experience of a challenging time that I've just moved through. And really only my inner circle know and have been shared the details of this experience. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get into. But this is from, like, I want to sort of kill two birds with one stone here, which is sharing my experience and for a purpose of helping us understand how we can handle uncertainty and stay solid through challenging times. So let's just talk about challenging times and define that first, right? Challenging times, these can vary, okay? These can vary. Like, when I tell the story, I'm going to speak about how in August, September, my challenging time was, some life admin that I was getting fed up with having to do, and it was quite irritating. But there was nothing compared to the life admin that I was about to have to handle in January 2024, just gone. So challenging times, let's take a step back. I'm making this video because we as human beings get ourselves into sticky situations because challenges do arise. And often we are faced with some challenges that are a lot heavier. And we can feel like we're suffering. And sometimes people don't have the awareness, the tools, the know-how to be able to really stay solid during those tough times. So this share is about, well, just sharing my journey through a time where there was a degree of suffering, and just sharing the tools that I've learned in hindsight, from going through this type of challenge. And the challenging times I'm really like sharing this to help are the ones that really rock us at our core, where there's grief or deep suffering, like deep emotion, and it's sometimes, a lot for us to move through. I make this video to normalize this process. Pain is pain. Pain is a part of being human. Pain is going to happen in our life. Loss is going to happen. Grief is going to happen. Pain is inevitable with us being human. Me saying that doesn't make it any easier. I know that. But what I wanted to share is that what turns pain into suffering, and we can our suffering can, like, we can stay in a state of suffering for a long time, longer than necessary sometimes. And sometimes people don't know their way out of it. That's why I think these messages are important. But what can turn our pain into suffering is our judgment of that pain, our stance on that pain. What I mean is our judgment of it being right or wrong. You know, sometimes we might go through a challenge and we deem it to be okay. So, you know, we handle it better. And then other times we can move through suffering, we can experience pain and we judge it to be unfair or not, yeah, to be wrong and unfair. And therefore we stay in it because of that judgment. The suffering becomes heavier. So handling this is about bringing, when we can, and it does depend on the context, like, yeah, it does depend. It doesn't. But I just feel like the situation I'm going to speak on is a little different to, say, handling the suffering that might occur when we may lose a loved one or something like that. Yeah, and then in the context, so everything is context dependent, I guess. I'll let you decide if this resonates with you. So it's our acceptance that pain has a process, that there is a process when it comes to pain. When we can accept that, then we can move through with more safety, and we're a little bit more solid in ourselves. We're able to, if there's lessons to be learned, we're able to learn the lessons. And sometimes the lesson is just, well, the lesson is always, how can we meet that pain? And so you might be thinking, what does this have to do with uncertainty? Well, we've either got certainty or uncertainty. Certainty, we know, it's comfortable. We've got a handle on it. We've got some control around it. Uncertainty, we don't. And in the context of growth, change, this is the realm of uncertainty. You know, if we want to move from where we currently are to somewhere new, that generally involves growth. And uncertainty is what, like, that's the field we're playing in when it comes to growth, is we're moving into an uncertain place where we don't know what can happen. And so the reason I spoke about pain being pain and how that can lead to suffering, depending on our judgments of our painful experiences, or we can choose to have this attitude of acceptance that pain has a process that we must move through. The reason why I speak on that is because the subconscious fears that we can carry around uncertainty are huge. And this is why a lot of people, they say they want to change, or they say they want to make their circumstance improve or make it better, but they don't do what is required. They don't go on the journey all the way. And it's because of this fear of uncertainty, which is naturally, yeah, there's some stuff there. So naturally, the uncertainty has a lot of fear attached to it. And I want to share my experiences and through these kinds of videos to normalize the journey, so that it's no guarantee that you won't experience pain, but it's just my experience that, life is so much richer with knowing how to handle uncertainty. So this experience that I've just moved through, I'll have to go back to September. Last year, September, my birthday. I was given the gift of knowledge from a masterful friend who was very knowledgeable in astrology. She gave me the gift of understanding perfection years, astrological perfection years. Now, we were all gathered at my whare, at my house here in Naarm, on Wurundjeri country. We were all gathered here at my house for my birthday. It was my 35th birthday. And my friend explained to me that I was moving into that I was now in a 12th house perfection year, and explained to me the significance of that. If you're not, I'll just do a brief explanation of that. Astrologically, there are 12 zodiacs, and there are 12 houses, and each house, we move house every year. Each birthday we move house, and each house has a theme. Each house is also governed by a certain zodiac, and therefore certain planets have a presence in these houses. So the significance of the 12th house year is it's more to do with the subconscious, and what this means in English, like plain terms, is that the 12th house is the final house, then it returns back to the first house, which is like the rebirth. The 12th house is like the unearthing of everything that is in the subconscious that needs to come up to be let go in order to move into your first house year, reborn for the next 12 years. So the 12th house year can be quite rough or challenging because of that, because a lot of things are coming up out of the subconscious to be addressed, to be turned and faced, to be let go. Now, I do this for a living, and I was still like, oh, this is important. So I learned about my perfection year, and I was forewarned, therefore forearmed. I was forearmed with the knowledge, and I was forewarned about, the nature of my house and the sign that was in this house. So I really embraced that knowledge. At the time, I was having to do a fair bit of life admin, you could say, like things just going like a little wrong, and I had to like just spend unnecessary time sorting it out, like sending emails and stuff. Life admin, not really a big deal in hindsight, but at the time I was annoyed. And I remember going home to Aotearoa, New Zealand, for Christmas for 3 weeks. And I really enjoyed the time that I didn't have to do any life admin. I was really, really not happy with just the unnecessary admin that I was having to do. And I remember being like, I swear, like, there better not be any life admin next year. I remember saying that. I was so naive. So anyways, had a beautiful time back home with all my whānau, family and friends. Swam in the moana, in the oceans, in the awa, in our beautiful rivers and our lakes. Ate good kai, just spent time with my family. Anyway, arrived back in Naarm, back in Melbourne, and January the 17th, 2024, I get this email from VicRoads. VicRoads are the government entity that govern our licenses and vehicles, right? Got this message from them. that my vehicle and my license was going to be sanctioned on the 27th of January for unpaid fines. I read that twice and I was like, what? I don't have any fines. That's what I said out loud to Maru. I was like, I don't have any fines. What's this about? It was past the time that I could call. So I was like, I'll call them in the morning, but genuinely, like, what's this? Then about 2 hours later, I kind of had like, it was like things were becoming clearer. And I went, oh, and it was starting to come back to me that 2024, this is Jade, who I am now, but I had a past life. And I just for a split second, I was like, oh, that time of my life was very much buried because a lot happened. And I've become who I've become. And I realized, oh, there's some stuff there. Thought I dealt with it. Hey. If you ever catch yourself saying those words, I've done the work, I thought I dealt with it. Be mindful of that. The work is never done, you know, and we may have addressed something at one level of our development. However, it can and it most likely will come back around at other areas, other levels of our development, and we never stop developing for as long as we live. For as long as we desire to keep learning, we will not stop developing. Therefore, our challenges and what make us who we are, the challenges we've been through in the past, will come up again at new levels, new devils. Okay, so anyways, it was coming back to me that there were some fines from a past life when I was in a relationship that involved domestic violence. It was toxic and I was in that for far longer than I needed to be. And it was starting to come to me. So 9 a.m. the next morning, I rang Fines Victoria to ask them what fines. Their response was, oh yes, Jade, so I can see a balance here of $75,000 and blah, blah. How would you like to handle that today? My response was, and honestly, afterwards, I was like, that was pretty gangster. My response was so collected. I said, okay, thank you. So my situation is that those fines weren't incurred by me. I was in a domestically violent relationship for 5 or so years. What are my options? She gave me my options. I could submit an application to submit an application to be assessed for family violence. So they sent me through all the forms and all the details, etc. And I went through that process. So that was January 18th that I made that call. And I'm making this video in April 2024. So 3 weeks ago, it all came to an end, and the decision was made through my lawyer. So all communications went through my lawyer. The decision was made to withdraw all $75,000 worth of fines and remove them upon assessing my situation. Which naturally, I was stoked for that. Like that was a beautiful outcome, and a natural outcome, I thought, because, and this is what I'll talk about next. Through the whole process, And when it comes to handling uncertainty, you truly, like, you want to have like a solid decision about where you want to land, right? You want to have a solid purpose and intention about what you're doing. So my solid intention was, I'm not responsible, therefore I need to stand up for that. And my intention is for these fines to be, for the fines that I can hand on heart say that they weren't mine, because there were some in there. There were 7 in there that were, that I was handed the fines for, but it was still during that period. So even if they were to make me pay those, like, I will take ownership for that. Even though my mental well-being wasn't all there. But majority of that balance was not mine. Therefore, my intention is for those to be removed. So I had that intention. However, I wasn't attached. Throughout that whole period, I had to be very okay with it going either way. And for me, if the fines were removed, awesome. If they weren't, what I had to get okay with was that, and what was the hardest thing was that it wasn't the paying of the money. It was having to pay for my mistakes, pay for my naivety, pay for my almost innocence, and just, yeah, pay for my not knowing back then. And it's like I sort of feel like I'd already paid enough, like emotionally, and to like have it assessed and potentially have to pay again would have been a tough pill to swallow, but one over the months that I prepared myself to have to swallow. Because when it comes to handling uncertainty, you can't be too attached to how it's going to go, right? You have to be open to all the possibilities, for real, like really, like for real. That's probably the biggest lesson. So how did I handle the journey? Because it was like I was very guided literally by my tupuna, by my ancestors, and just the vision of seeing my ancestors navigate the Pacific Oceans, Te Moana Nui Akiwa, and heading out and voyaging into the unknown. And sometimes there were calm days, and sometimes there were 40-foot waves, and sometimes there was loss. Sometimes there was, discovery, or sometimes there was making it back home. So I very much journeyed with my tupuna on this journeyed with my ancestors. There was that element. I was never alone. I called in my community, both our wairua in spirit and also physically. So my inner circle was pulled in to hold space, not to take responsibility for anything, but to be there in support. And they were a space where I could share and express as needed. The other thing that I did was I took responsibility for the balance of my masculine and my feminine, for my emotions and when I needed to take action. That was my responsibility, to balance those two. To remain focused when I needed to remain focused. To be prepared to take action when I needed to take action. Not just taking action unprepared. And then making space when I wasn't taking action, and making sure I had the space, so I wasn't just filling it with action, making sure I created space to feel my emotions. Because there were many emotions that needed to be felt, to be felt. Many. it was a process of not realizing all of this, this past life was real, like not even giving it a second thought ever for the last 10 years, really. Oh, not ever giving it a thought, but not to this degree. And then all of a sudden having to unearth it, having to unearth all of my stuff and then have it looked at and having to prove it and provide evidence in a legal capacity. To me, that was challenging. And there were moments where it did feel like suffering, but I had to remember that this was a process, and that this process I asked for on some level. I asked for, and it is growing me. It is for my growth. It is coming up to be let go. It is coming up to be let go. It could not stay hidden. So yeah, being prepared, balancing action and emotion, calling in support, lawyer, tupuna, ancestors, my circle, my inner circle, actual living sisters and brothers, pulling in my inner circle, and understanding that this was a process that I needed to move through for the purpose of, resolving this, that had been a situation that had carried so much, and I hadn't even realized because I thought I worked on it. So look, I trust you have gotten some clarity, direction out of this video, out of this share. And I just want to come back full circle and remind us that pain is pain. It's a natural part of being human. And it's our judgment of that pain that turns it into suffering. Suffering is again, it's normal for us to feel like we're suffering. But what's not normal is the length of time that we can stay in that place. Because when we're suffering, we just feel lost. And we're absorbed by loss. Our pain becomes loss. We feel like we've lost. And we don't see, we can't see what we're learning and what we're gaining and how we're growing. Because sometimes the pain is so big. So it's about, in our own time, because it is situation dependent, finding a way to understand that pain has a process, and that process is growth. That process is it's shaping us into something for our purpose. And yeah, unattaching to how we need it to be. So I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Ka kite.